Welcome to chapter 7, and this one we're going to be sorting out this guy's gloves and possibly the apron, depending on how long it goes on for. So just going to jump right in and carry on where we left off. If you guys haven't saved yet, go right ahead and save, because if you lose a lot of work, it's hell to deal with. So, let's see what we've got going on here. We've got his gloves. We've got polygons really nicely spaced, so we don't need to do any retopology. I think we just got a few triangles on the inside of there, which is fine, because we're not going to see that anyway. So, just going to jump up the subdivision levels here. You can always hit Control D or click Divide. Turn off polyframe, make sure we've got symmetry turned on, which we do. And we're just going to start adding a few rough details here. So I can see there's some sort of weird twist going on here, whereas I think that must have been from either the extraction or when I was just messing around with the form of the hand. So I'm just going to correct that. Using the move brush, and I'm going to jump over to clay build, good old trusty clay build, and I think we'll probably just add a few quick details before we start messing around with the high res stuff, as we'll end up getting some clean extracts and things this way. So I think I'm going to put like a band around the wrist area, as well as possibly something towards the top. Maybe, we'll see. So just go ahead to the lowest subdivision level. You can press Shift D to go down the subdivision level. I'm going to hold down Control Shift and select the lasso tool. And from there we're just going to hide the polygons around the wrist. That'll give us sort of a almost like a bracelet kind of thing going on. And from there we're going to go to Subtool, Extract, and we're going to drag the thickness down because that's going to be way too thick. I'm going to hit Extract on there, and notice that we've got double-sided turned on, so it's actually got an extraction on the inside as well, and that's not something that we want to happen. So I'm just going to turn off double-sided mode, hit Extract again, probably a bit still on the thick side, so let's turn around down a little bit more, and that'll do us. Hit Accept and unhide the mesh, and this will allow us to do a few extra little details, sort of bracelet type thing, or maybe another sort of leather strap or something like that. Just a few interesting details on a glove. So let's jump up the subdivision levels, or hit D on the keyboard. And from here we'll start sculpting in a few wrinkles and details and things like that. I'm going to select clay build, just because we're at a pretty low poly stage on here, so we can deform a lot of polygons all at once. Let's just get some wrinkles around this strap. Nothing too extreme, as we haven't got the polygons to play with at the moment. So I thought the angle was a little bit too sharp on the thumb there, so I just corrected it using the move brush. So now, there's not really a whole lot to do with so few polys. So we're going to divide again. So I can do Control D or just hit Divide. So got more subdivision levels there. Now, so this is staying nice and sharp for us because we've got a creased edge on it. we actually want to knock that back a little bit, so I'm going to subdivide once more. I'm going to go to crease and I'm going to press uncrease all, and then next time when I subdivide it'll start softening off these edges, and at a higher subdivision level we can sort of smooth these back a little bit more. Let's hold down shift, smooth away. There we go. Okay, but we don't want to start sculpting on that as there's far too many polys to handle really, so it's going to go back another subdivision level, and just going to start sculpting on some rough wrinkles, sort of working with what we've already got there at a lower subdivision level. So the ones we put in at a lower subdivision level are going to be our primary wrinkles, so just lumps and bumps and things in the actual gloves. This is where we're going to start putting in a few more details. Using a standard brush and turning the lazy step down so we don't get any dotting happening. Turn the Z intensity down as well so it's a bit easier to control. Now we can start enhancing these wrinkles and things that we've got. Don't worry about that strap just yet. I'm not going to be doing anything with it for now. So I don't want to go too overboard on the wrinkles on this, otherwise they'll just look really overdone. So really want just sort of like large deformations, as it's quite a big area. So if you fill it with lots of small wrinkles, it's going to be really distracting. And it's just not really natural for that type of thing to happen with such a large expansive material. So got some nice wrinkles going on there. I think that'll sort of do for it. So let's move on to sort of the palm and such. So they're meant to be pretty heavy gloves, so you're not going to get a bunch of fine wrinkles. But we do need to sort of hint at you know, sort of movement within the gloves. So they're not brand new, so they're going to be quite worn. So we're going to be able to sort of bring out a few details in terms of knuckles. Just remember to smooth everything back with the shift button. So again, I'm not being very exact with this because it doesn't really matter too much. So smoothing back, things will start to fall into line. And now on the underside, once we've just done this thumb, On the underside, we're going to start mirroring the wrinkles on the underside. So sort of follow around from where your knuckles are and start putting a few indentations in to sort of indicate where the gloves flex, the fingers of the gloves actually move and have compressed with time. And this is something we'll enhance further as we get up the poly group, as we increase the poly count. I'm not going to bother smoothing down right now, as we kind of want these in and being quite prominent for now. Going to turn on solo mode so that we don't have to keep on dodging the body and we can just sculpt straight towards it. Just going to correct the profile for this finger here because that was just wrong. Looks like his finger's bent, so just gonna hold down Control, and I'm gonna grab the mask lasso rather, and mask that off. Gonna hold down Control and tap on the mask to actually smooth it, and then tap in the background. And I'm just gonna straighten this finger up a bit more. So that's a little bit too bendy. There we go. Just kill off the mask by Control and dragging on the background. And get the Damien Standard brush back. Just going to hold down Shift and just tap on these areas a little bit just to smooth them back. I'm actually going to turn the Z intensity down of the smooth brush as well, just so I don't kill off so much of what I've just put in. It's going to be needed at the next subdivision level. So you can see, smoothing that out, you've kind of got a few more indications as to what these wrinkles are going to be doing when they're at a higher resolution. Sort of adding in sort of compression zones, and if we switch over to the standard brush, we'll be able to sort of enhance that by just kind of putting a few wrinkles in on the outside of these compression zones. Smoothing them back. So I'll be doing a bit more of that at a higher subdivision level, but you can see it's starting to get a bit more of a weathered, used look on these gloves. And if they're ever a type of glove that actually requires it to look weathered, it's going to be a blacksmith's gloves. So just jumping back to the Damien Standard brush. If you're tired of having the Damien Standard brush keep on jumping out of the, well, being stuck in the lightbox menu and not in your, for instance, brushes, where's brushes, brush. If you have to keep on coming up here to select Damien Standard every time you restart ZBrush, cool thing you can do is select the Damien Standard brush first of all. We can go to brush, and then you can press Save As, and then from there you can navigate to your ZBrush installation folder. So that's in Program Files x86 if you're using 64-bit, Pixelogic, ZBrush 4R6, and then you can go into Z Startup, and from there you can go into Brush Presets and then save the Damien Standard brush from there into this folder, and then it'll automatically start up in your brush list, so you don't have to keep hunting through Lightbox for it. So useful little tip there for you if you're constantly having to hunt around for it in Lightbox every time you start up. So just trying to get in some defined wrinkles around the thumb. The thumb has quite a lot of movement, so I'm going to expect a lot of wrinkles around this area. Smooth them back down. We'll still have those indentations there for when we go up at subdivision level, which will give us all the indication we need to carry on working on them. So for reference, you can always just find some pictures of leather gloves. Alternatively, if you've got a set of leather gloves yourself, they don't have to be big, thick blacksmithing gloves. I've looked at my my motorcycle gloves enough times to know where the wrinkles go, and my motorcycle gloves aren't too far off sort of this sort of thing, so but the best thing to do is just grab yourself a pair of gloves and make a fist and bend each individual digit and kind of notice where the creases and wrinkles actually occur. Alternatively, you can just use your hand. Gloves are going to bend in exactly the same place that your hand does, well, near enough anyway. So for instance, right now I'm just sort of moving my palm, sort of bending my hand so that I can see the wrinkles sort of around this area. And same sort of thing with the thumb as well, just kind of noting sort of where the flex areas of the hand actually are. So it starts looking a bit of a mess. We can just tidy up by smoothing it back. You can see that they smooth back quite nicely and give you fairly realistic wrinkles. I think overall the thickness of the palm and the hand are sort of at odds. So I'm going to grab the move tool and I'm going to tweak this a bit. I'm going to flatten down the top of the palm, not the top of the hand, and I'm going to start bringing the palm in as well. So I'm going to create a bit more of an area where obviously it's the wrist. And these are meant to be padded anyway, these gloves, so they're going to be a lot thicker than what you'd normally expect. But getting the proportions right can be sometimes a little bit hard when you're trying to keep thickness there as well. So I'm just tweaking this just to the point of where it starts looking right more than anything else. So use your own hand as reference. My hand's not that fat, honestly. I think that's a bit better. So I'll do it. Cool. So let's I think it's time to jump up a subdivision level. So go ahead and press D on the keyboard. Get up to the next subdivision level. And you see that these have been smoothed down quite a bit with the extra polys. So just going to drop my brush size. Going to go with the Damien standard again. the standard brush rather. And I'm just going to smooth these back a little bit more before I start enhancing them. So again, having quite a low Z intensity, you can build them up a bit slower, a bit more under control. Just holding down Alt to indent things a bit, sort of just to enhance a few of the wrinkles and things like that. So I'm just grabbing the inflate tool, the inflate brush rather, and just going to hold down Alt and just tap on these fingers a bit. They're a little bit too sausage-like. So just narrowing them down towards the tips and at the joints. Same with the thumb. And jump back to the standard brush. Grabbing the move tool, just going to fine tune this little section here so it's a bit more finger like. Now again, it doesn't matter too much with gloves, but it's nice to have it looking a little bit more accurate. Back to Damien Standard, just to sort of enhance these wrinkles and compression zones. I think we need a few more polys in here really to get these details in. So I'm just going to leave indications there for us, and we'll come back to them a bit later when we do a more detailed pass. As this is mainly just getting the secondary forms in. So what I mean by that is we have primary, secondary and tertiary forms. Primary forms are the big ones that you can see from the silhouette of a character. For instance, if I turn off solo mode, and if I choose a silhouette material, we can kind of see here that we have this is the primary form. You see that we've got the bulk of the muscles and the body, as well as things like the lips on the boots, as it affects the overall silhouette of the character. We then have the secondary details, which are things like the details in the face, so the profile of the nose, the fat and muscle of the body, so the insertion points of the muscles, contours, the big wrinkles on the clothing, those are secondary forms. And then we have tertiary forms as well, which are things like fine wrinkles, scars, stitches on the clothing, all the fun little details basically. And at the moment we're mainly just sort of focusing on the secondary forms. So ones you can see quite close to the character, but not too far away. So I think pretty much done there with the gloves in terms of the secondary details. So these sorts of things are arguably tertiary details. However, looking at the glove on its own, they're quite an important part of it, so I tend to lump them all into one. But we'll come on to those a little bit later. So let's see what else we can do with these. Let's grab this sort of ring thing. Probably another strap, I think. Just grabbing the move brush and moving this out. So obviously it's overlaid over the top of the glove. This won't have symmetry enabled, so what I've just done will not have happened on the other side. So we're just going to go to Deformation, Mirror, Geometry, then Modify Topology, and then Mirror and Weld. So see where we've changed the form of the hand slightly. We need to move this into place. I'm going to activate symmetry first. Do that via the transform menu or pressing X on the keyboard. And just moving that back into position to suit the new profile of the wrist. So let's see what we've got on this. If we turn polyframe on with Shift and F, do we have creased edges? It looks like we do. You can see a slight double line on these. So we're going to keep that nice and sharp. So I'm going to go to Geometry and divide it. Probably do it a couple of times actually. One more. Actually, we'll go back to subdivision level 3. Go to crease and then uncrease all, and then divide again. So now it's a lot softer. So it's kind of a bit more like a leather strap, which is I think what I'm going for. I might actually sort of embellish this, so maybe takes pride in these gloves, maybe they're passed on down to him from his father or something like that. So to get that kind of idea, we're going to go to our tools menu, and we're going to bring up a cylinder. So cylinder 3D. We're going to press frame or F on the keyboard so we can see it. Going to go make polymesh 3D and go back to our main tools. We're then going to go to append underneath the subtools menu and grab the polymesh cylinder that we just created. So that's a bit ginormous, in which case we're going to go to the subtool menu. Sorry for darting around a bit, just trying to make my mind up. Go to the subtool menu and select the cylinder we dropped in, and go to deformation, and then we're going to drag the size down several times. Turn on transparency so we can see it. Just keep dropping that down. That'll do, I think. Yep. So we're going to convert this to a Dynamesh. I'm going to go to Geometry. I'm going to go to Dynamesh. See what 128 by 128 looks like on here. Going to hit Dynamesh, and that screws it up. So I'm going to turn the resolution up to 256 and press Dynamesh again. Not brilliant. Let's try 512. Press Dynamesh, and it's kept most of the details. The main thing is we've got the cylindrical form still there. So we're going to hold down Control Shift, and we're going to grab our trim curve brush. Hold down Control Shift again, and I'm going to drag this just off center to get rid of that bit. I'm going to drag it up from the other side to get rid of the other side. So now we've got a pretty decent shape. I'm going to turn up the resolution a little bit more so we can keep the detail. So I'm going to put it to 1024. And then I'm going to hold down Control and mask off in the background to re-topo it. It's not really giving us what we want. So I'm going to use Z Remesher just to see if that actually works for us. So let's turn solo mode on so we can focus directly on it. Now let's go ahead and see what we can do with Z Remesher. So I'm going to use the same poly count, preferably. I'm going to turn off adaptive and then press Z Remesh. And that's given us a pretty tidy looking, well, almost pretty tidy looking cylinder for the most part. Not quite right, so I think we're going to have to do this sort of the hard way. So we're going to jump back to our original cylinder 3D. As you can see on here, it's not going to be great for working on due to the amount of poling and triangles that we've got there. So I'm going to go to the initialize menu and we're going to see what we can do to tweak this. So I'm going to take the Z size down to about 50. That's going to shrink it down. Might even take it down to about 25. And maybe even a bit lower, say 15. Yeah. So 15. Now that's basically shrunk it. It hasn't changed the number of polygons, so you can see we've got a lot of long rectangles in there. So we're going to change the H divide to make it a little bit rounder for us. And then we're going to change the V divide down so that we get pretty much just the one. There we go. So everything is now square. Doesn't take care of the center for us. So what we can do is put an inner radius in there. So it's almost like a coin or something, perhaps. I don't really like that. So we're going to do a bit of what is traditionally classed as sort of box modeling, maybe. And we're going to go up to the top here, press Make Polymesh 3D. We're then going to hold down Control and Shift, and we're going to select the lasso tool. I'm going to start assigning a few polygroups to this. So now, using the lasso tool, we've just cut off the end segment. I'm going to go to polygroups and press Group Visible. I'm going to reveal the rest of it. I'm going to do the same thing to the other side and press Group Visible. So now we have three polygroups. We have the outside of the cylinder and the top and the bottom, or the two sides depending on which perspective you're looking at it from. And now we're going to add a few edge loops to it. So we're going to press Control Shift and click on the polygroup to make that the only one visible. Then going to go to Geometry and go Edge Loop. And now here we're going to do group loops, and we're going to put the number of loops to about 8 and see what happens. And now we're going to press Group Loops. So that's tidied things up a little bit, still not brilliant, so we're going to undo that and we're going to go with Edge Loop. So that's it's added pretty decent edge loop for us. I'm going to hold down Control Shift and tap in the background to unhide everything else. I'm going to do the same on the other side and press Edge Loop. Then bring everything back again. Now I'm going to click once again inside one of the other edge loops in the center and invert it, and press edge loops once more. And I'm going to do that for the larger groups on here till I get something that looks fairly even. Doesn't have to be perfect, but it'll help if it is more accurate. Press edge loop. Do the same on this one. So now I've got both the same on both sides, but that's given us some quads to work with at least. And we've only got very few triangles towards the center, so it's not going to be too much of an issue. So with that done, I'm going to go back to our original tool. I'm going to turn off solo mode, find that we're upside down, go into the subtool menu and then press delete to get rid of that original cylinder. Then go into append our new one, which is going to be large. When we select it, we'll turn off polyframe and go to deformation, and then we're going to reduce the size. I'm going to grab one of the transpose tools, in this case move, and then I'm going to move this into position and rotate it. It can take a bit of fiddling to get it right. So this is starting to look a little bit like a wristwatch, so I don't know, I might not do this, so this might have been a bit pointless. But we'll scale it down some more. Just drag out a transpose line by clicking on the mesh and dragging. And I'm just going to situate that just over the top of our strap. So this might be a good luck charm perhaps, or I might actually just carve a rune into it or something like that. So yeah, never know, I might actually remove it entirely, but we'll see. I'm actually going to go to deformation and click mirror, go to geometry and then press modify topology followed by mirror and weld, so we've got one on both sides now. I think this will be a good time to start tidying things up a little bit, as we've got a lot of extracts and things like that. So we've got the upper body, let's just rename that upper body. We've got the beard, we've got the extract there, which is sort of the beard braids. I'm going to call them beard braids. Got the gloves, which is fine. Oops. There we go. We've then got the extracts here, which is sort of the wrist. So I'm going to call that wrist strap. Got the apron. We've got trousers 1, which is actually the belt. So we're just going to rename that to the belt. Got the feet, which are now boots. Down here we have the bootstraps, so just rename them bootstraps. And then we've got bootstraps 2. I'm typing with one hand here. We've got the original body, which we might use for a few insert mesh brushes later on, so we want to keep that safe. So I'm going to move that all the way to the bottom of the pile and turn it off so we don't see it. We've got the boot rings. And then we have those little coin things which we just put in there. So I'm going to move those up to where we've got the gloves and the wrist straps, just to keep everything in those areas together. And I'm just going to call those glove charms, as I think I'm going to carve something into that, so that'll be fine for now. So try and keep everything as organised as possible. You never know when you might have to sort of refer it to other people and things like that, so it helps keeping things together and legible. So I think that's pretty much all we want to do on the gloves right now. I don't think there's anything else to do there. We've got the main wrinkles in, we've got some of the fingers defined. So how are we doing on time? I think we can stretch to doing a few little extra details on the apron. Okay, so let's get the apron visible. And because we've got done a few modifications on the body, looks like we might need to correct a few things there. Just to make sure it's the same on both sides, I'm actually going to go to Modify Topology and press Mirror and Weld on here. So it is completely identical. That's fine. So just going to grab the move brush and we're going to move this out so it's not affecting the geometry underneath isn't affecting the apron. Okay. So what we're going to end up doing is sort of dividing this up a little bit so that we can have things a bit separate, so we can sort of layer some stuff on top, make sure that it looks like it's sewn together or something. For instance, the bit at the back, that's going to be sort of a separate strap which will do up one side, and I think this section is fine as it is. So what I'm talking about here is going to be fairly simple. We're going to sort of disconnect this section so we can stretch it over, and then we'll be able to make it look like it's sort of buttoned on or something like that. So let's get that done. So to do that, we're going to use Go Z. We're going to go up to the top of the tool menu and press Go Z. Press continue. That should stick the apron through to 3D Max for me. Yeah, it's just starting up on my others. Just going to pause the video while it loads up. So here we go, we've got Max open and we've got our apron in here. So what we're going to do with this is, if you remember the controls for Max, it's you hold down Alt and the middle mouse button to rotate around. Just use the middle mouse button on its own to pan and scroll, and you can hold down Control and Alt and the mouse wheel, and you can zoom in and out by moving the mouse forwards and backwards. So I'm just going to switch the realistic view to shaded. It's a bit easier to see. And here we're going to just attach this edge. So I'm going to go to the modifier panel, I'm going to click on edge, and I'm going to select these edges just by holding down Control and clicking on each one. Then I'm just going to press split, which will now split those off. So if I select polygon, and if I select all four of these, and grab the move tool, top left corner, or you can press W on the keyboard. And I'm just going to move those back a bit so I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to select the border mode underneath the selection menu. And select the border for this and then press cap. And I'm going to do the same thing here where we've left that hole and press cap there. Going to go back up to, going to click on editable poly to deselect everything. Go back to Go Z and press edit in ZBrush. And I'll take our changes back through into ZBrush for us. So now you can see we've got these this separate part. And here, if we click on polygroups, see that we've actually still got our polygroups there. So whether it's transferred the, doesn't look like it's transferred the creasing, so we'll just have to remember that for when we actually subdivide it. I've got the move brush selected. I'm just going to decrease the size of it. Not that it matters, because if we go into solo mode, and if we just hold down Control and Shift and drag the lasso around the edge, we can then mask that off using the Control key. If we unhide everything and then invert the mask by holding down Control and tapping in the background, select the Move Transpose tool, drag that out, and we can drag this wherever we want now. So I'm just going to pop that on the side. Just going to undo the mask, grab the move brush, and just going to move these vertexes over so they're not quite so stretched. So remember, deactivate symmetry because now we're dealing with it asymmetrically. Just make that so it's a little bit flush. Doesn't have to be perfect. So now we've got a way for our Forgemaster to fasten his apron. I'll add a button or some sort of clip or popper to it later on. So let's see what we can do about these edges. We have 2 polygroups, 3 polygroups. So let's go to our geometry panel, go to crease. And being so we've still got the different polygroups, we can just crease by the polygroup borders. So if we press crease PG, we'll get the creasing around where we need it. And that'll keep a hard edge to everything when we subdivide it. At least on the edges where we want it. So let's subdivide that a few times. And because this little section here, if we drop back a few subdivision levels, because this edge is actually the same polygroup as the other, it's not going to put a crease on that corner there. Just going to make it nice and smooth for us. It looks like we've got a little bit of an issue there, as this is going to be very sharp. So let's just take care of that. So we can do this manually. Let's hold down Control Shift with our lasso tool. Just select that face. And we're going to press uncrease. Then we're going to hold down Control Shift again. We're going to click on this polygroup, which is going to select that for us. Going to hold down Control Shift and Alt and click on that polygroup. We're going to invert, and we're going to hold down Control Shift and Alt and just drag around the corner of that one there. Maybe not. Let's just alt click on that one and Control Shift Alt and drag around that to add it to our deselection. This is really playing up. Okay, so really doesn't want to play ball with us. So let's see what else we can do with it. I think if we just undo it to the point of where we had our creases in there already, we might want to uncrease things at a higher subdivision level. So let's just press divide a few times, and that's really crushing that section in. So let's try and fix that. So let's hold down Control and Shift and just click on this polygroup. And that has selected this area for us, including the bit we don't want. So we're going to hold down Control, Shift and Alt, and we're going to remove that from the selection. Then going to Control, Shift, drag on the background to invert it. So now we want to get that as the same polygroup as this internal side here. So let's go about doing that. I think we're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way, and if we go into visibility and sorry, not visibility, go into display properties, wherever that's gone, there we are, and then press double. And what we're going to do now is we're just going to remove this section, so holding down Control, Shift and Alt, and we're just going to remove all these polygons from what we have visible here. Do the same for this section. ZBrush, you really know how to be a pain sometimes. Fact. Okay, so let's see if we can get that. So guys, just going and trying to think through this, see what tools we've got available. So I think if we take this area, and if we Control, Shift and Alt and deselect that one, let's just change the polygroup for this. So we'll group visible. So now this one section is completely isolated. So now we'll hold down Control, Shift and click on this polygroup there. Let's change the brush size down. Click on this. Nope. Click on this one. Get in there. Or Alt click on that. Just inverted it. And now we'll just take that section. ZBrush. So we've got this one selected. Let's invert that. And we'll Control, Shift and Alt click on this section. Invert it. So now we're getting somewhere. Let's just manually remove these areas. Oh, this is really awkward. Tell you what, let's try it another way. We'll crease by, if we go onto geometry, go to our crease menu and do uncrease all. We'll do it by the surface normal, using the angle. So these should be pretty sharp angles. If we put the crease tolerance down to about about 70ish, and press crease. That will put a crease around the edges that are at an angle more than 70 degrees. So that's got all the edges around there, all the edges down here. And of course it will have creased this edge as well, but that's no problem really. So let's press divide a few times, turn off polyframe, and we'll see if we've got any errors that we need to correct, which looks like we do around here. But I think I'm just kind of reading too much into this. I don't think it's so much of a problem. So let's just once again crease by polygroup. We'll uncrease all and press crease by polygroup, and we'll subdivide it. And it's not really going to give us much of a problem now that that's sharpened up. So just a bit of a backtrack there, as that was ZBrush being quite awkward. What we did is, if we have a look at the polygroups, turn on solo mode, the main point was to get this little thing, this little end cap that we made. The main point was to make that a different polygroup. So we've creased around the edge there, which means that we don't get such a sharp point here between these two edges, but we do up here, which is what we wanted. So after dividing it, we have a sharp edge there. If we go down an extra subdivision level, press delete higher, and if we just duplicate the apron, go back to geometry, and we can then uncrease all and then divide it another time to get some softer edges going on. So it's a bit of a long way around, but now we have something that's usable, and it's got a nice bit of shape to the edges. We are going to smooth them out a little bit more, but mostly I just want to keep the thickness. So I'm going to activate symmetry, and I'm going to hold down shift, right click, and turn the intensity up. And I'm just going to smooth these edges a little bit more at this higher subdivision level, just to round them some more. Just work my way around the bottom just to smooth everything out a bit. There we go, that'll do fine. So, what are we going to do now? First of all, I'd like to add a pouch. So if you turn on solo mode, turn off solo mode, I'm going to have to drop down subdivision level or 2, or all the way to the bottom. I'm going to grab the moved brush, and we're just going to move this. Just going to turn off the original apron. The reason that I duplicated that was to make sure that if we needed the creases, we didn't have to bother faffing around with them again, and we could always just go back to a tool where we actually had them in already. So just a bit of a backup procedure really. Just going to make sure that the mesh isn't intersecting with the other bits. I'm going to jump back up to subdivision levels, hit D on the keyboard. So it looks like we're okay there. Nothing intersecting. So maybe down here, that's okay. Let's pull it out a bit. Okay, so back down the subdivision levels, all the way to the bottom. If you turn on polyframe, we're going to hold Control and Shift, and we're just going to click on the poly group that we want. And this is selected the one that we don't want, so I'm going to invert that. And just Control, Shift, click on the one that we want. So this is the front, and we've got some decent topology around here to be able to add a pouch for his tools and things. So I'm going to go into solo mode again, and we're going to hold down Control Shift with the lasso tool, and I think the pouch would fit quite well there. Probably a little bit too big. Let's just take that down. And from here we're going to do another extraction. So we're going to drop the thickness of that quite a bit. 0.0025 should do it. Turn off double and press extract. And we're also going to turn off the smoothing as well, so drag that all the way to 0, press extract. It still wants to smooth. If we uncheck that box, that little radio button, press extract, and that'll stay pretty close to the original hidden part. Let's just have a quick check of the thickness on that. That'll do it. So we'll press accept on there. We'll just unhide the rest and turn off solo mode. I'm going to jump to the extract that we did, turn off polyframe, and we're just going to move these polys around after turning on symmetry. To kind of give us a bit of a pouch on the front. There we go. Alrighty, so what I'm going to do now is just kind of draw it out a bit at the top, and we'll be filling that with some tools and things when I go through the creation of the accessories. So we'll create some pliers and chisels and other assorted things. So when we extracted that, it should have created polygroups for the edges and it creased them. Actually looks like it did. Fantastic. So we're just going to subdivide these. So I think we need to crease one of the edges there just so we don't get such a curve going on. So if we've gone to solo mode, we'll do this manually instead of relying on ZBrush. We're going to crease these corners here. So hold down Control and Shift and drag a selection around that edge. And then we're going to press crease, and that will sharpen up the corners. Then going to divide it again, and that will keep its shape. Turn off solo mode and polyframe. And now we're going to press uncrease all, and then divide a few times, so then it looks a little bit softer. Alrighty, so let's just jump up the subdivision levels for our apron, see how everything looks. So we need to bring this out a little bit towards the bottom. Okay, so just going to go back to the apron. You can alt and click on it, and we're just going to put some basic creases and things in. I'm going to jump down the subdivision levels so we don't have to play with too many polys all at once. Got my standard brush selected. Okay, so let's get these creases in. Let's turn off symmetry because we don't want the creases to be symmetrical. So now I just want to put these in where we'd get some sort of tension. So obviously where it wraps around his body, depending on how tightly it's tied. Just Just turn the intensity up a little bit. Use that brush, there we go. So this is going to largely follow the curve of the topology that we created, which is really handy because we should get some nice clean geometry when we go up the subdivision levels. Of course, it's going to be buttoned here, so we're just going to have some pulling on this material as well. Don't worry too much if you start running out of polygons at this point. We'll be jumping up a subdivision level shortly. Smooth them back a bit just to kind of ease it off, otherwise we'll get a rather lumpy result when we jump up a subdivision level. So let's go ahead and do that now. Smooth a few of these off. Really get some nice large wrinkles in this area. We're not going to have any real fine ones because it's going to be quite a stiff material. It's going to be, well, we can tell it's pretty thick leather, and leather never normally has very fine wrinkles. Plus it's quite a large expanse of cloth, of leather as well, so not going to have tiny wrinkles in a large area. Don't think we're really going to get what we want in this section, so I don't think I'm going to push it too much. I have to jump up a subdivision to do that bit. Just sharpen up these wrinkles a bit here using the H polish brush. It's not going to be very soft leather, so the wrinkles are going to be quite hard. Let's change my material just so I can see through the shadows a little bit better. I'd recommend switching between materials and experimenting with different ones for different purposes, as if you're still using the standard red clay material or red wax that is default in ZBrush, you're not going to get to see all your details and things that you put in, as it's a pretty terrible matte cap. I'd recommend going to the Gnome Workshop and purchasing Ralph Stumpf's materials pack, as there's a whole bunch of really cool useful materials in there which I use a lot myself for visualizing what I'm doing, as well as a few for rendering purposes as well. So check those out, and it's worth paying for. Just going through, sharpening up the bulk of these wrinkles. Going to flatten that one out as it's kind of contrasting too much. Just pass a smooth over it so I can kind of just smooth out the flow a bit. Use the H polish brush to kind of accentuate it. You can also use the Damien standard brush to put in a few nice wrinkles and things. So just going to enhance them just by using its normal function of digging into the surface. But just going to put a nice sharp edge on some of them by pressing Alt and having it bring out. Though it looks like I don't have the resolution. So I'm just going to jump up another subdivision level. I'm going to come around to the side where this is going to be most useful. Turn on solo mode so I can see what I'm doing. Add some nice sharp ones here. And again, we don't want to go too over the top, as once again this is not a detailing stage, it's just kind of getting the secondary forms in. Really don't like that one. Okay, so getting a little bit distracted now. Let's leave that as it is. Let's turn off solo mode, see what we've got. So let's grab this on the front here. I think I'm going to leave that as we put some tools in there. I'm going to have to move it, and that's also going to affect the wrinkles and things. So I'm just going to leave that as is for now. And yeah, getting distracted there, so let's just leave that as it is. So that is the end of chapter 7, guys. As you can see, we've got pretty much everything in place. The next stage is going to be adding a few accessories. Then once the accessories are in place, we'll then move on to the fine detailing, so all the fun stuff, skin wrinkles and scars and threads and weave and all the fun stuff to do. And that's going to be in chapter 9, so chapter 8 will be adding in the accessories. I hope you had fun with that, guys, learned a few things and learned how much of a pain in the ass hiding things on ZBrush can be as well. So until next time, guys, come join me in the next chapter. Happy sculpting.